Dlatego to wydał ich Bóg na pastwę bezecnych namiętności. Mianowicie kobiety ich przemieniły pożycie zgodne z naturą na przeciwne naturze. Podobnie też i mężczyźni, porzuciwszy normalne współżycie z kobietą, zapałali nawzajem rządzą ku sobie, mężczyźni z mężczyznami uprawiając bezwstyd i na samych sobie ponosząc zapłatę należną za zboczenie.
Lecz kto by się stał powodem grzechu dla jednego z tych małych, którzy wierzą we mnie, temu byłoby lepiej kamień młyński zawiesić u szyi i utopić go w głębi morza. Biada światu z powodu zgorszeń. Muszą wprawdzie przyjść zgorszenia, lecz biada człowiekowi, przez którego dokonuje się zgorszenie.
I mean, the Vatican is sitting on its hands under a cloud of suspicion and accusations of child molestation and papal cover-up, and they're going to wait 5 months to address it. My goodness! Why are any of us putting up with this as Catholics? They don't care about kids. They can't even pretend to care. We're going to wait 5 months and then we'll get right on this. They don't care. They're only interested in protecting their own power and corruption. And if that's not true, then schedule this conference, Holy Father, Greg Burke, schedule it next week. Address this problem before you lose the rest of... No, the only defense left for these friends of Francis, the big backers of Francis, the only thing they can come up with is, yeah, but we love the Pope and you don't, you're a hater. Oh my gosh, can we please come out of kindergarten? What difference does it make? You love the Pope, fantastic. Show me the dogma that says you must love the Pope in peril of your soul. What is this? What are you talking about? You love the Pope. That couldn't possibly be any more irrelevant. One of the most powerful men in the church has indicted key members of the hierarchy as predators against little kids, homosexual activists in the clergy. This is criminal behavior, friends. And the man will not even answer the charges? It's just like he refused to answer the dubia of Cardinal Burke and the dubia cardinals raised against Amoris Laetitia. He can't be bothered to address heresy, can't be bothered to address abuse of kids, can't be bothered to address rampant homosexuality in the clergy and in the hierarchy. I guess there's a pattern here, isn't there? Because ugly things are now emerging.
It seems then that only the Pope has the power to punish his cardinals. So why doesn't he take stronger action? Maybe because he too faced accusations in his homeland of Argentina long before his election.
Habemus Papa.
When he was Archbishop of Buenos Aires, he apparently tried to have a pedophile priest acquitted. In Buenos Aires, along with God, or rather Diego Maradona, the Pope is a star. His face is everywhere. And yet, some refuse to share in this iconographic cult. In the city center, we have arranged to meet a group of victims. They were abused by priests in the Archdiocese of Buenos Aires. They alerted Pope Francis when he was their Archbishop.
El caso de los sacerdotes pedófilos. Dice que esto nunca pasa en mi diócesis.
Nunca que él quiera admitir.
Es una mentira.
¿Quién intentó a contactar a Bergoglio?
¿Quién intentó?
Sí.
Yo intenté.
Todos.
Yo también. Todos, sí.
¿Todos?
Sí, sí.
¿Y quién tuvo una respuesta?
Nunca.
Nadie. A todos los famosos
del mundo. Leonardo DiCaprio también fue a mostrarle el Oscar. A todos les abre las puertas.
Pero no,
Y a nosotros no nos mandan ni una tarjetita para decir lo
No solo
siento
eso.
mucho.
No espero nada, no le creo nada.
Y sufrí mucho la decepción y me dolió mucho que Bergoglio no haga nada. Y todo el mundo a mí me decía que le escriba porque él me iba a contestar. Y sufrí mucho. Y estoy muy decepcionada. Eso.
But you love the Pope. Friends, it is time to grow up and face the reality, the harsh reality of what's happening here. And it's a reality that has apocalyptic implications, quite obviously. If the hierarchy, specifically Pope Francis, do not comply with Archbishop Vigano, the Catholic Church will not survive this crisis. Again, she will not survive. Not in her human element, certainly not in every country. Don't you understand? That's what's at stake. That's what's going on. This is not about the popularity of Pope Francis. This is about the future of the Church. What we're looking at right now is the work of scheming, plotting enemies inside the gates, attempting to completely discredit the Catholic Church in the modern world. And we're going to sit here as Catholics and take it? While they're out canonizing the very people who helped institutionalize a cultural cover-up for child-abusing clerics in the Church? While they're out hobnobbing with the pro-aborts and the population controllers and Jeff Sachs and the United Nations fellas, refusing to answer serious, credible charges of abuse of kids, and instead attacking the victims? Heck, Pope Francis now, if I'm understanding this poor, befuddled old man correctly, he apparently, during a sermon at Casa San Marte, he apparently suggested that the devil, who he calls the great accuser, has been let loose and that he's got it in for these bishops, seeking to reveal their sins so he can scandalize us. Isn't that terrible?
Welcome back. One final point before we go tonight. Pope Francis finally broke his silence on the sex abuse scandal and cover-up in the Catholic Church. And I'm almost speechless at what he said. Let me read it to you. The Pope said, and this was during Mass this morning, he said, "In these times, it seems like the great accuser has been unchained and is attacking bishops. True, we are all sinners, we bishops. He tries to uncover the sins so they are visible in order to scandalize the people. The great accuser, as he himself says to God in the first chapter of the book of Job, roams the earth looking for someone to accuse. A bishop's strength against the great accuser is prayer, that of Jesus and his own, and the humility of being chosen and remaining close to the people of God, etc., etc. So we, the Catholic people, who care about sexually abused children and the evil men who covered up that abuse, to the Pope that makes us Satan? No, I think you have that backwards. The men who abused and covered up that abuse, they are doing the works of Satan."
Dear God, who's advising this man? What kind of demon is suggesting that the Holy Father should behave this way? This is just too much. The enemy obviously has gotten over the wall for 500 years. He's been hell-bent on getting over that wall, on destroying the papacy, the Mass, the priesthood. Well, here we are. This is Luther's revenge, the triumph of Freemasonry, and the abomination of desolation, all rolled up in one. Welcome to the party. And how did this happen, friends? If we're going to have any clue on what to do next, what to do tomorrow, as soldiers of Christ, if we're going to have any clue what to do, we need to understand how we got to this point in the Church. We need to look back. We need to go back 50 years and listen to what the pioneer traditional Catholics were saying, what they were saying, what they were shouting from the housetops, that if these modernists were not stopped, evil would manifest itself in the holy place, in the sanctuary, in the Vatican itself. But nobody listened. And a lot of these old traditionalists went to their deathbed being mocked by the Church, being mocked by the neo-Catholics as paranoid conspiracy theorists. Well, look around, because maybe they had a point. And they were not concerned merely with their liturgical preferences, with Latin, with pretty vestments and smells and bells. That's not what traditionalism was all about. As long as we get our Mass, you can have yours. As long as you give us the Mass, we'll swallow the council, as Abinant said. No, that is not. They decried that attitude. They condemned it, these traditionalists. It wasn't, in fact, first and foremost, their movement was not about what they were for. It was what they were against, what they feared with holy fear. And that was a watered-down theology, a Protestantized liturgy, smashed altars, busted up statues, the constant tinkering with the old rites and the formulas and the prayers that for 1,000 years had been the bane of evil in this world, the bane of the demons. Because that's what the church is all about. It's not the church of accompaniment. It's not here to make us feel good. The church was here to protect us from evil, to help us not be led into temptation, to lose our souls. That was her point and purpose. That's what the fortress was all about. The fortress against the world, the flesh, and the devil. The very same fortress that the neo-Catholics mock. We got to get rid of that fortress mentality. Vatican II did away with it. It sure did. And that's the problem. You see what I'm getting at? Friends, when you look at your children tonight, when you tuck them into bed, think about what their tomorrow is going to look like if this is allowed to go on. What we're looking at right now is the culmination of all that is the triumph of evil inside the Holy Church. Changes made down over the past 5 decades, changes inside the Catholic Church that have left the Church vulnerable to attack. Remember when John the 23rd threw open the window to the world, he opened the window so that evil could come in. Whether he intended that or not, that's what happened. Evil came in. The fort was compromised by those who should have known better, by those who should have defended her, as John Fisher said. And now we're facing a world without the exorcism, without the priest, without the sacrifice, without the rituals and the prayers and the ancient Catholic Mass, without the ancient sacraments. Everything has been changed, right? Including the sacraments, including the Mass. All those things which were literally fulfilled with exorcisms, protected in the sacred language of Latin, also the terror of demons. All of it's been changed. All of it's been thrown aside. And these things were literally the terror of demons down through the ages. The weapons of spiritual warfare given to us by Christ himself, given to us by Holy Mother the Church. And so the reason the traditionalists resisted the new Mass and the post-conciliar popes was not because they were arrogant and they were more Catholic than the Pope and they knew better than the Church. No, it's because they had done their homework. And they knew from reading Pope Pius X, St. Pius X, the great prophet of the last century. They recognized it as a ceasefire against evil, as hoisting the white flag in the battle against the demons, as a seditious attempt to subvert, undermine, and destroy history's most powerful exorcist, the Holy Catholic Church. Don't you see? This is what it was about. But don't you think that maybe those traditional Catholics might have had a point? Look around you. Millions of human sacrifices of little babies every year. Marriage destroyed, family life destroyed, violence in the streets, chaos, apostasy, civil unrest everywhere. Churches closed, whole orders of nuns disappeared, convents closed, predators in the house of God, child molesters, sodomites and Roman collars, for heaven's sakes. So bad that Our Lady of Fatima saw it coming and she came down and she tried to intervene. She tried to warn us. And what did these same modernists in charge today and their immediate predecessors do? What did they do? They told her to go to hell. Gee, I wonder why we have problems in the church. All we did was tell the Mother of God to go to hell. And we will not comply. These post-Vatican II churchmen brought this death sentence upon themselves. These modernists brought it upon themselves with their anemic theology and their homo-friendly liturgies. They tore out the altar of sacrifice. They wrecked the priesthood. They trivialized the Roman rite. They abolished the Friday abstinence, the Ember Days. They brought in the altar girls. They brought in the communion in the hand. All of which represents their breaking of the covenant with God. The mighty Catholic Church, which civilized the world, which gave us the greatest civilization in history, just 50 years after Vatican II, can now plausibly be portrayed as an organized crime syndicate, crawling with predators and criminals. Well played, Vatican II. And now the state is just this close to outlawing the Catholic Church altogether from our society. And what do you think that's going to look like? Again, think of your children. What's their future going to look like? What is our future in 10 years? Imagine going to church on a Saturday afternoon to go to confession. Only one little problem. There's no little green light on. There's no line of penitence. There's no priest behind the screen. Imagine going to Sunday Mass, but nobody's there except for a guitar strumming Sister Thelma Lou offering some sort of cockamamie communion service. No priest, no consecration, no Mass. Your mother or your father lying on their deathbed somewhere. You call the parish house, but there's no answer. In a few hours, your mother is going to take her last breath without Holy Viaticum, without the last rites, without absolutions, and again, the demons will laugh because they will have triumphed. You see, friends, this is what we face. And we need to restore a certain sense of urgency and stand up and fight back. This is chastisement. When we can't go to Mass, when we can't go to confession, when we can't get the last rites because the priests have all quit, or they're in jail, or they've been banned, as the Freemasons banned them in Mexico a few years ago, or in France a couple hundred years before that, and now Vatican II, whatever you think, whether it was derailed and co-opted, or whether it was designed from the start to do this, Vatican II has joined that revolutionary effort to remove the Mass, to remove the priesthood from society. Because the churches, since Vatican II, are closing. There's a crisis in vocations. There's a crisis now of sexual. The traditional Catholic Church. We recognize this crisis. We know it's real. We know it exists. We want to do something about it now, but we want to restore the church. These folks want to bury the church. They want to use this scandal to bury the church forever. Let's not forget that. This is why we can't just join in with the lynch mob. We have to use our Catholic heads and our Catholic sense. We have to get together and strategize and to pray, but then we strategize, and Catholic action, effective Catholic action, is needed. And the only way, I'm absolutely convinced of this, that the only way to save the church in the modern world is for practicing Catholics to start acting, speaking, worshiping, and praying like Catholics again. We need to throw the abusers, we need to expel them, throw them out of the church.
Od porządku ludkowie moi jest Pan Bóg. On pilnuje, żeby wszystko szło jak trzeba i było jak na początku, teraz, zawsze i na wieki wieków. Amen. A diabeł chce zmieniać, ulepszać